GO Transit is Ontario's, or rather Southern Ontario's, commuter rail. GO Transit is known for things such as the Bombardier bi-level and using F units. But how did we get here, first of all? GO Transit was founded in 1967 and was Ontario's first and only commuter rail. GO's purpose was to shuttle the average 9 to 5 worker from the suburbs to the big city, which is Toronto, and back. Originally, GO Transit was a 3-year experiment to see if drivers would turn to GO as a convenient way to get to work, and it succeeded, establishing GO as a commuter rail. GO Transit in its early years used various locomotives, most of them being freight locomotives. The reason being for this is in case the commuter railroad were to fail, the freight locomotives could be sold out to freight railroads or short lines. Some of those locomotives were the GP40TC, GP40-2W, the F Unit APCU, and more. At times, some of these locomotives would be leased out to freight railroads whenever they needed extra power. Along with its locomotives came the passenger cars, single-level cars made by Hawker Siddeley. These were the main passenger car along with a DMU version of the same car. Around 1976, GO Transit chartered Hawker Siddeley yet again to make a brand new double-decked bi-level passenger car to increase capacity of its growing ridership, with the cab car variant being delivered a few years later. This began the eventual rise of the now iconic Bombardier bi-level. Originally, when GO Transit was founded, it only served today's Lakeshore East and West lines. However, with its expansion of its rail service in the 1970s and 1980s, this caused GO Transit to introduce the Georgetown, now named Kitchener line in 1974, the Richmond Hill line in 1978, the Milton line in 1981, and the Bradford, now named Barrie line, and Stouffville line a year later, establishing GO Transit's present-day service of 7 rail corridors. Near the end of 1982, plans were made to create GO Advanced Light Rail Transit, or GO Alert. It was basically an automated train system for the Lakeshore East and West with some new corridors. Though the plans eventually went bye-bye, its plans did spur into other things such as more frequent service and upgrades to its existing lines. In 1988 to 1994, GO Transit purchased 48 F-59PHs to replace its older fleet of locomotives. These locomotives were GO's first units equipped with computerized systems and thus allowed for a substantial increase in performance and reliability. They soldiered on until massive service cuts. GO Transit retired and sold off the now surplus of locomotives and cars in the mid-90s to late 2000s. In 2006, Metrolinx was formed. Not that Metrolinx, this Metrolinx. Metrolinx is a crown agency of the Government of Ontario that manages and integrates road and public transport in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, which is basically most of Ontario's Golden Horseshoe region. Along with all of those entities, GO Transit is also a part of this. GO Transit is basically Metrolinx's prized possession as it's their biggest entity. In 2009, though, they apparently merged. But I see it less of a merger and more of a, well, I merged with it, but I'd rather prefer to keep me as the parent company. Sounds like a certain class 1. Also in 2006, GO Transit wanted a locomotive capable of higher speeds and able to pull 12 cars all by itself. This came to be the MP40PH-3C. This locomotive was also meant to retire the remaining F-59PHs. Well, currently that's not the case. During the late 2000s and 2010s decade, some other things happened, such as the Kitchener line being extended from Georgetown to Kitchener, hence the rename to Kitchener. Train service on the Stouffville line was extended to Lincolnville GO Station, also called Old Elm Station. The Bradford line was extended to the Barrie South GO Station, then to Allendale Waterfront, hence it now being called the Barrie line. Train service on the Lakeshore East and Lakeshore West was increased following an increase of frequency, and something that should have not gone unmentioned. Transport Canada mandated the K5CA on all passenger locomotives and cab cars. So this pretty much means that eventually the entire fleet would be replaced with this Not very good sounding horn. 2014 saw the brand new state-of-the-art CEM cab car made by Bombardier. These safer and more modern cab cars would take over Go Transit by storm, with the first 62 cab cars being delivered in 2015 and 2016. They also came with a two-tone K5CA. A lot of the older cab cars which received the K5CA couldn't play the K5CA correctly, like this. 'Even today it still happens. There's one cab car that doesn't play the two-tone correctly, and just plays it all at once. 2015 saw the brand new MP54AC, MPI's Tier 4 compliant passenger locomotive. It uses two Cummins QSK60 diesel engines that produce a combined 5,400 horsepower, but can operate with one if desired. The locomotive uses AC traction motors, but Go Transit, which sent 647, an MP40, was converted into an MP54AC in return. However, it kept its DC traction motors. Followed by the first actual MP54AC being delivered in 2018. This was Go 668. Originally, 26 locomotives were supposed to be delivered, but Go ended up with 14. In 2017, the plans of the missing link was brought up. The main goal of the missing link was to remove freight traffic from at least one corridor on which Go operates by placing it on a dedicated freight corridor parallel to Highway 407. The plan said at least one corridor, but really the mapping said two corridors, the Kitchener and Milton line. This would move CN and it's 2023. CN and CPKC off those corridors, which they both operate, and would both be redirected on this 407 paralleled freight corridor. The plan was dropped by Metrolinx a few years later. There was a lot of problems with it anyways. On October 18, 2021, Go Transit began a pilot project of a train from Toronto to London, Ontario via the Kitchener line. This gave London and two small towns a new train option other than via rail. On June 28, 2021, Bloomington Go was opened on the Richmond Hill line. I personally think the station was unnecessary to build so extensively because it's in the middle of nowhere, serving barely anyone around the station. On January 18, 2022, plans were drawn up to build a line from Weston Go Station to Bolton, Ontario. If the plans were approved, it would be the first Go line to open since 1982. Well, we're now in present-day Go Transit. It's CEM infested, K5CA written, paint scheme mixed and whatnot, but it's still good. But now it's time for the future. And in the foreseeable future, electrification is bound to start. Some form of progress is starting at the moment, actually. Along with this, 13 locomotives were planned to be leased on Go Transit for service improvements. This could either be the SC44 Charger or its variants, the EMD F125, the remaining MP54 ACs that it didn't get, or the new Tier 4 F40PH. Track improvements are either happening right now or will start in the future. These will greatly improve service along lines that are mostly single track or require more tracks for service, such as the Barrie Line and Kitchener Line west of Georgetown. As for electric locomotives, it is said that Alstom is the carrier that will produce the electric locomotive. However, Alstom right now is kind of backed up. The locomotive could also be a dual-powered locomotive for lines that are going to be partially electrified. Station improvements and new stations are starting to pop up, such as the new Mount Dennis GO station on the Kitchener line. I don't know when it's going to open up, but I did see it for myself, and it does look like it will open in a year or two. Line extensions are also happening, especially with Lakeshore East to Bowmanville, and other great plans. Other than that, not much is going on with GO Transit. GO Transit has become a thriving system. It went from shuttling the average 9 to 5 worker to shuttling almost anywhere in the Golden Horseshoe of Ontario, and it's only going to get better.